Architecture, the art of science and building. The Renaissance, a time when ideas flourished and great works of art came to life. The Renaissance was a high time for architecture, like Duomo di Firenze, and architects like Giambattista Alberti and Filippo Brunelleschi.
That's probably good.
Their works, of course, were greatly affected by the works of Rome and Greece. This documentary takes us in depth with architecture of the Renaissance.
Many of us have seen Greek and Roman buildings and ruins, whether it's been on screen or in real life, or now you've seen first Greek and Roman architecture. The type of architecture that contains massive pillars that are strategically placed, and huge arches that can hold tons of weight.
If you were to take a test about what buildings are from the Renaissance time period and what buildings are from the Greek and Roman time period, it is most likely that you would get stumped.
It comes as no surprise that Renaissance actually means rebirth, and that it is also no surprise that that you are stumped trying to sort out the buildings that are from the classical time period and from the Renaissance time period. However, there are three differences between classical and Renaissance. I think are we done?
Oh, we ended that?
Yes.
See, that's what I'm talking about.
Da Vinci of a man in a circle, but what does it mean?
It turns out that the circle actually means something. Renaissance architecture wanted to make everything in the perfect size and proportions. The name of that drawing, called The Proportions of a Human Body, according to Vitranium. The circle shows a person purports for the perfect architecture. This makes so that when you
Walk into a building, you don't feel like the roof is too low or too high. This way makes you feel at home. By finding the perfect proportions, buildings become less extravagant and more simple. As an effect, buildings become easier to comprehend. Another feature that architects of the time were looking for. Another way to spot the difference in Renaissance architecture is how simplistic it is. For most people, Gothic architecture is too hard to comprehend.
For instance, if you take a Gothic building and you try to memorize it, it may seem too difficult to comprehend. By making designs simpler and by using more arches, vaults, and domes, things become easier to comprehend.
By making designs simpler, buildings don't look over-decorated, and the eye doesn't get lost trying to focus on one piece of it. You may think by now that the whole point of Renaissance architecture was to copy the Greeks and Romans, but it wasn't. Actually, it was the exact opposite.
It was to reflect the rebirth of the classical times.
Remember, Renaissance means rebirth.
Architects never copied classical themes. Instead, they improved on them and fitted them to their own needs.
No wonder it was considered a need to visit classical buildings and ruins in order to become an architect. Products of classical architecture. Many buildings were constructed in the Renaissance. A good example of this is the Cattedrale di Santa Maria del Fiore, also known as the Duomo di Firenze. The Duomo di Firenze was built on the remains of the old church in Florence, Italy. Construction started in 1296, before the Renaissance, and because of this, it started in the Gothic style. The first architect of the Duomo di Firenze was Arnolfo di Cambio, although many more were involved in the 140-year-long construction period. After the main cathedral was built, the dome was left uncompleted.
It was widely thought of to be an impossible task to build the dome, which was to be 130 feet in diameter. That that
Was because
that was because there were simply no trees big enough to bridge.
but the dome had to be built, so Wool Merchant Guild held a competition to see who would be the architect of the dome. Only 2 people showed up, but only Filippo Brunelleschi got the job. He has an idea to support the dome with another dome inside the other.
This lessened the weight
And
at the supports needs to build it.
he has another idea to support each dome during construction without wooden beams. He completed the dome and therefore the cathedral in 1436. The result is a marvel of architecture, as the Duomo di Firenze is 376 feet tall and 502 feet long. It is the 3rd largest dome in the world, and it is the largest brick dome ever built. Because it was started in the Gothic style and finished in the classical style, it is a mix of the two. This piece of architecture is a hybrid of 2 styles and represents an amazing Renaissance architecture. It's 1404, also known as the heart of the Renaissance. And Leon Battista Alberti was just born in Genoa. He does not know it yet, but little Leon is going to become a famous architect and a mind that still influences architects today. Leon Battista Alberti took on a rough childhood. He was born in Genoa in 1404.
But his mom was unknown and his dad was later exiled. But since he was born during the Renaissance in such a thriving city, lots of art and architecture were all around him.
This sparked his interest in architecture. Leon is all grown up and he is fascinated with architecture, so much so that he went to Florence to train as an architect. But he has found a home writing treatises. A treatise is a handbook for other architects. His ones include the Area della Pittura, which means painting, the Sculptura on sculpture, and Theory Victoria on architecture. He has also become something of a Swiss Army knife.
He was a minor philosopher, poet, priest, artist, author, humanist, and of course architect. He was also the first Italian grammar.
Along with all that, he was a true Renaissance man, and he greatly admired works of Brunelleschi. First and foremost, though, he was an architect. In 1446, he underwent his first big architecture commission with Sigismondo Malatesta, which he turned into a memorial chapel called the Tempio Malastino. But he is best known for the design of the Basilica of Santa Andrea. Leon Battista Alberti died in 1472. He was 68 years old. His treatises are still used today. Although sometimes overshadowed by Brunelleschi, he changed the architectural world forever. Leon Battista Alberti was a true Renaissance architect.
Today we will learn about a goldsmith who became one of the Renaissance's greatest architects, who accomplished one of the biggest feats of his time. A little boy named Filippo Brunelleschi had no idea what he would accomplish in his life. He was born in 1377 and lived in Florence. He was always fascinated with creating objects. Filippo's parents gave him a literary and mathematical education and intended him to be a civil servant. At the age of 21, he became a goldsmith. One day, he decided to make a trip to Rome to see the amazing architecture. While he was there, Filippo decided to become an architect. The city of Florence the Guild of Wool Merchants decided to fix the giant hole in the roof of the cathedral. So they hosted a contest to build a dome for it in 1418. Whoever designed was picked, meant a shot of fame and glory for many years to come. Despite the prizes, only two people stepped up. One was Filippo, and the other one was a fellow goldsmith named Lorenzo Gilberti.
I think the reason no one wanted to enter is because they thought it was impossible. So if their design was built and failed, they would be a disgrace to the entire city.
This was Filippo's chance to become the architect he wanted to. Nobody believed such a colossal dome could be built without any buttresses or pillars. Filippo's design consisted of two domes with rings of stone to suppress outwards force. The domes are connected by internal crossbeams. They had 8 arches to accommodate the octagonal base the dome would rest on. Okay, pause. End.
So the guild took a risk. As they built, the rings got smaller diameter, and each ring supported the weight of the next. The guild members described it as being built in layers. Filippo first built the first for 46 feet of stone, and then switched to sponga, a lightweight volcanic rock. While he was building, Filippo ran into a problem. No mechanisms had been invented to raise heavy materials so high. Filippo himself invented a pulley system powered by oxen. The longer it took the dome to be completed, the longer he spent at the work zone. He oversaw practically everything that happened. He diluted their wine with water to keep the workers' minds sharp and aware. Filippo also added barriers to the platform to keep workers from falling. He also carefully explained what he wanted done when a question arose. In 1429, cracks formed at the base of a wall next to the wall, making Filippo reinforce the walls with iron tie bars. Not long later, in 1436, March 25th, the Pope consecrated the cathedral and a celebration began to celebrate the completion of the dome.
At the age of 21, he became a goldsmith. One day, he decided to make a trip to Rome to see the amazing architecture. While he was there, Filippo decided to become an architect. The city of Florence decided Wait, is it even recording? What? It's not. It stopped recording. Help. No, I didn't press any button.
Did you press start?
Yes. So 3, 2.
Daniel, it was still recording.
Oh, okay. We'll cut it. It's okay. They had 8 arches to accommodate the octagonal base the dome would rest on. Okay, pause. End.